Is this 2019? CD, thank you so much for the donation. I really appreciate that. Appreciate that as always. And also, you didn't read the thumbnail properly. It meant to say seek their 20th victory of the year. There was never a jinx about it, but I'll gladly take the dono. So thank you kindly for that. Guys, I'm about to lose my mind tonight. Are you kidding me? Is this 2019? How do the New York Mets lose a ball game in DC against the Nationals when they were up 6 runs? I'm getting the shades of Kurt Suzuki dominating this Mets bullpen, and Edwin yet again there in the 9th inning back all those years ago. I am disgusted. And speaking of Edwin Diaz, where was he in the 9th inning? Where was he? Ryan Stanek, it's the same exact situation again. Juan Soto gets on base 4 times today, yet the only thing you care about is the fact that he missed a ball there, clearly that he should have caught with the sun in his eyes, unravels Tyler Megill's brilliant outing as we enter the 7th inning, and the boys, after putting up a 5 spot there in the 1st inning, lose this one in a dramatic, a piss-poor fashion by a final score of 8-7. How we doing, everybody? It's your guy Wardy here. Thank you kindly for chopping in live on a replay as we break down every single Mets game throughout the course of the season here on the WardyNYM platform. And usually after a game like today, I was excited. I was giddy. I was really looking forward to breaking down this ball game with each and every one of you. Shout out to our amazing sponsors at SeatGeek, BetUS TV, and Mando Deodorant. We appreciate them all greatly, folks. Check them out in the links down below as always. But today we're going to break down everything that went so wrong in this godforsaken ball game. Another ball game where the Mets absolutely have themselves to blame. It wasn't just bad fundies by Juan Soto. It was not hitting with runners in scoring position when you had countless times to do so. After putting up 6 runs in the first 2 innings today, you allowed a soft-tossing southpaw that looked like batting practice early in this one get in a groove and still have himself a decent outing by the end of this one for the Nationals after a piss-poor start for himself. You cannot allow that starter and Parker to get in a groove. The Mets had opportunities. They wasted their opportunities in this one, and they only had themselves to blame first and foremost in this. And the guy that I feel most sorry about out of this entire start has to be Tyler Megill. How can it not be Tyler Megill? Megill continues to look fantastic on the bump. He's doing every single thing imaginable right, and not only does he get not 1 but 2 more earned runs charged on him when he only had 1 run that really should have been charged on him. He gets a 3 spot on him, doesn't even go 7, and he doesn't even get the win because the boys lose a 6-run lead that they had early in this ball game. Folks, thank you so much for chiming into the latest New York Metropolitan WardyNYM post-game show here, everybody. We're going to break down this ball game inning by inning, everything that transpired in this one, innings 1 through 9, as we always do. And again, thank you kindly for chiming in. We had not only things go right offensively, but things go oh so wrong defensively. Late in ball game with runner in scoring position, and Jose Butto proving yet again how he's one of the most unreliable options that the Mets currently have in their bullpen. Not that I hate Butto, because I don't hate the guy whatsoever, but I think it goes without saying that Jose Butto finds himself now in the category, more so on the outside looking in, as a reliable option for us to consider. I won't even be shocked if Jose Butto's out of this bullpen sooner rather than later because of the fact that the Mets have an abundance of arms to choose from. Even with Jose Urena, who got called up for today's game as AJ Minter was officially placed on the 15-day IL there with a lat strain to the left side. Hopefully Minter will be back in a couple weeks. Urena's up to eat some innings, and we didn't even need him to do that today. That's why Daniel Nunez wasn't called up yet. But here's the thing. How much longer are we going to wait for Daniel Nunez? Not that I think the guy's going to be the saving grace. Not that I think the guy's going to be the chosen one. Not that I think that he will be the sole answer to all of our problems when things go right in the bullpen. But Daniel Nunez is healthy and he's stored away in AAA. And this is another outing just 48 hours removed from Ryan Stanek not getting the job done in the 9th inning. Mets fundies not getting the job done down the stretch. And Mets hitting down the stretch, we needed more than what we got on this one. I don't care that you're up by 6 runs. You cannot ever put your backs against the wall. You can't take your foot off the gas, because as soon as you do that, a fast, a hungry, and a determined team of the Washington Nationals are going to come right up and smack you across the face with a humble slice of reality, which is that they're going to win this ball game in a dramatic walk-off fashion where Pete Alonso can't even get the proper flip there because Stanek can't corral it, and that's it for the ball game, everybody. That's it. That's not, it's just done just like that. right when you thought the Mets were going to have themselves their second win in 3 nights there against Washington Nationals. Now we have to hope that the boys split. This is exactly what I was hoping to avoid entering the series. And now if the Mets drop 3 out of 4 here against the Nationals, things get dicey fast from riding high on that 7-game win streak at home. The 12-1 homestand only means so much if you're going to be now, 6-8 on the road so far this year. They have to be better. This is an excusable loss, far and away the worst loss of the year. This trumps the loss the Mets had when I was in attendance there when Tyler Megill also didn't pitch terrible, but Brett Beatty had bad fundies in the infield that led to some unearned runs, and then we lost 5-0 against the Marlins in that series finale because they had the fundies, they were hitting, and the Mets didn't get their first hit in that ball game until, what was it, the 6th or the 7th? It was a joke, but even that ball game wasn't as much of a joke as this one was, because there is nothing worse than losing a game that you not had a 1-run, a 2-run, a 3-run, a 4-run, a 5-run, a 6-run lead is never going to be anything short of inexcusable should you lose this ball game. Thank you guys kindly for smashing like and subscribe button as you chime in. I greatly appreciate that. And no, the sky is not falling by any stretch. This is not one of those things where it's like, oh no, the Mets are absolutely screwed now. Far from it, but obviously we're going to have our knee-jerk reactions, and we're going to be honest as Mets fans when we just sat the past 2.5 north of 3 hours watching a ball game that we all were expecting to win. Always pisses me off to lose a ball game, especially bothers me when I commit my weekend to the boys like each and every one of you, my entire first half of this Sunday, just to see them lose in this dramatic fashion. Yes, I'm being biased as a fan, because if you're a Nats fan and up until they won today, you're like, oh, I wasted my entire day watching the boys when they're not going to win. I understand. That's just how it is in the game of baseball. But this one stains. It sucks a lot. And let's break down everything that went wrong in this one. First and foremost, folks, everybody here in the live show, spam in the chat. Let me see in the comments down below, on a scale of 1 to 10, how frustrating is this early season loss for the boys in your opinion? This is tippity top of the list for me. This is Wardy rant levels, what we're getting right now. It's impossible to feel anything otherwise. How do you lose a game in this fashion the way that the Mets did when they had plenty going right? They were beating up on Parker. Buddy was batting practice, and it wasn't overly shocking because even though he went 8-shutty against the Orioles his last start, he doesn't have a great fastball. He isn't getting swing and miss on it at all so far this season. As from I saw a graphic earlier today through Baseball Savant. Now we come to find out today that Parker's batting practice early, and the Mets still can't get the job done. Are you kidding me? You put up a 6 spot in 2 innings and you lose this one? Inexcusable. Everything went wrong. It's not just on one individual player. Juan Soto offensively wasn't an issue, but defensively hurt this Mets team in more ways than one, and we have to call him out for it. I know these fluke things happen, but the fact that it's now another Juan Soto play that we're seeing in the outfield that he should have made, that one way or another he didn't make, that's going to be naturally critiqued, and you're going to have the overreaction, you're going to have the level-headed reaction, and you're going to have someone like me who's pissed off about it right now while still understanding I fully expect Juan Soto to be amazing for the Mets this season. I look forward to when that happens. Getting on base 4 times today, I was getting excited. I was looking forward to breaking everything down with the graphics I have set up for you guys for individual player performances, but after that happening, Tyler Megill gets unraveled. Jose Budo forgets how to command the damn strike zone, and what he does, he throws meatballs, and now we have ourselves an 8-7 walk-off loss in the end here, in a dramatic bad funnies, bad defensive play fashion, and the boys look to even this series with a split before they get out of Dodge and DC. All right, guys, let's break down this ball game. What an absolutely frustrating loss. I mean, oh my God, this sucks so much. And for Edwin Diaz to not be available, that's frustrating too. Why was Edwin not available today? You know, what is the issue with Edwin Diaz trying to pitch on back-to-back days? I know he's had the issue with it before. If you guys don't know the context with Edwin Diaz, he has fluctuated a lot. And you did get heel Wardy today, because I can't be the happy-go-lucky Wardy I want to be today when you lose in a walk-off fashion for the second time in 3 days, when you should have never had that happen against the Washington Nationals. So this is not a slight at all here to the Nats and their fans. They are doing things right when it comes to their core that they're building from the Juan Soto trade. There are a lot of young, exciting players in the lineup that I hate that I have to turn on as a baseball fan, but I have to because they're in the division now and they're going to be paying the ass for years to come. We'll talk about Mendy. We'll get into everything in this one, everybody. Again, thank you kindly for chiming in. Eric Douglas, Steve Lawn, we got Daniel, Juan Diaz, all my great members in here going up the list here. Stoney, great member, going up here. JR, great member. Eric Roper, Mr. Chicken, how you doing? Home Run, Frank, Robert, how you doing? Kevin, great member. GSU, how you doing? Dave Kaplitz, if he's in here, great member. Dominic, great member as always. Lewis, great member. Roberto, Sean, Daniel, how we doing? JJ from State Farm. Lordy, Juan, great member, moderator. Dylan Caps, great member. Irv, how we doing? Mark, how we doing? The fact that I couldn't even play the WardyNYM post-game jingle today really grinds my effing gears. Snags, how you doing? Great member. Everybody. Okay, final thing from your guy, Wardy, real quick, and then we'll get into this one. And it's kind of comical when I say it on days like today, but just listen up, everybody. Take a look. BetUS TV, our amazing sponsor in the platform that has you covered all the latest odds, picks, and lines. I know this was a deflating loss, but the Mets are up plus 550 right now to win the National League. If you agree with that, feel free to sprinkle some dollars here. If you agree with the Dodgers play, the Phillies, the Braves, the Padres, what have you, all I will say is just make sure that you guys bet responsibly should you take part in anything. But when it comes to odds, lines, picks, props, you name it, our friends at BetUS TV will always have you guys covered. So thank you so much, President, for the chat here. The curse is still on. Dodgers fan giving me money is something I'm never going to complain about, but the curse beyond that, F out of here, buddy. Thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate it. Now, guys, let's get this thing started. Okay, Ernesto with the $10 holla right away says, I can't stand Jose Butto as a reliever. He has been bad since the postseason. He's not high leverage, and he has sucked this year. He's a lawn man and a blowout. Here's what I will agree with you on. Jose Butto is not a guy we can rely on much in high leverage right now. I wholeheartedly agree. Not only was he overworked last year, going from a starter to a reliever for the Mets down the stretch, but he was throwing meatballs like Phil Maton in part because he was overworked. And the Mets were like, okay, we have to use you, even though we don't necessarily want to use you there in that first series against the Brewers in the wild card. Fast forward to present day, Jose Butto hasn't been overly nails this season. He has been one of our biggest Achilles heels in the bullpen, as has been the case excluding yesterday and Danny Young. And unfortunately now, as of late, in Ryan Stanek, because Stanek back-to-back outings, we're trying to get a save with him, and it just doesn't work whatsoever. How many times am I going to say this? Mendoza, enough with the pitcher gambling. I 100% agree as well. And I'm left wondering what is going on with Edwin Diaz. Why was he not available in this one, everybody, right? Juan Diaz with the $5 holla states the following. Tough losses happen, but we all need to remember we are 19-9. Let's not overreact. The Mets are going to be fine. It's still April. Of course, the Mets are going to be fine, but this pisses me off. You know, this was a game they should have had because this game matters just as much. I actually can take the jingle or leave it, but today I was actually looking forward to hearing it. See what I mean? Dominic, our great member, was even looking forward to hearing the jingle today, and he couldn't hear it because the boys didn't win. They blew this one. So frustrating. But Juan, going back to the point, here's the thing. These are games that are inexcusable to lose, right? It's one thing to say the Mets lost this game 2-0 the way that they won yesterday against the Nationals, and you're like, okay, they just didn't show up today. It's frustrating, but it is what it is. It's another when you had yourself set up for brilliance, you had yourself set up to win today, and you had yourself set up to be up 2 games out of the 4-game set here with the Nats to potentially secure the series tomorrow, and now you're looking for a best series split, and you drop a game to DC that you absolutely had in the bag. Hope you guys win the World Series. It's your turn. Well, I appreciate that a lot. Even if that is you being sarcastic, regardless, I appreciate that plenty. Shout out to Presidente in the chat here for being very nice as a Dodgers fan with another $2 holla. But all right, guys. Yeah, let's all be happy with this. And I can't be. Exactly, Thor. This was a very frustrating loss. Okay. Guys, the boys had a chance to get their 20th victory of the season. Would have made them the first team in Major League Baseball to 20 wins. It didn't happen. Let's explain exactly why it didn't happen. Trenton with the $2 holla. Thank you. Had to watch this one at my in-laws. Couldn't rage. Yeah, if you can't rage, just come to Wardy. I will sweat it all out for you, and I'll rant like the absolute schmuck that I am to make sure that you guys get what you're looking for. But as we begin here in the first inning, everybody, Lindor gets on with a single. And for context, Francisco Lindor now, folks, in the first inning this season is batting .481. The guy's a hits god this year. I can't get over the amazing start Francisco Lindor has had. Juan Soto then gets on with a walk. The Polar Bear gets on with a walk. Parker's looking shaky early. It's bases loaded, no outs for the Mets to begin this ball game. Yet somehow, some way, they still lose it in the end. Mark Vientos gets the offense started with a sac fly to make it 1-0 Amazons. Marte with a walk, and then we see Nimmo with a sac fly, makes it 2-0 Mets. Then with 2 outs, who steps up? It's the same man who stepped up countless times to start this season when no one else hasn't. Shout out to BC and everyone chiming in the chat. We appreciate you guys. Smash that like and subscribe button as you come in as we rant, live react, and break down together the latest amazing loss from the Mets in a walk-off fashion against the Washington Nationals. 8-7 is your final here in this one, everybody. But as we continue on from there, Luis Torrens gained his first start of the series after Francisco Alvarez won Oppo yesterday for a home run. The day before, we also saw Alvi rip a single single and throw out a batter. So Alvarez has done his job since being back from his rehab stint. What is Torrens going to do? Well, Luis Torrens does exactly what he needs to do, and he drives himself a baseball for an RBI single. And based on a terrible throw there by the Nats, that increases the Mets' lead. That's another run that comes in, and just like that, everybody, the Mets have themselves, at the time at least, a nice, comfortable 4-0 lead. Josh, great member. I feel sick, Wardy. I do too. The only good thing is that Sunday, we got a whole week to get to, so hopefully the boys can bounce back tomorrow and get the sour taste out of our mouth. Because what a terrible way to lose a ball game. Absolutely inexcusable. Like, there's ways to lose ball games, everybody, and they're more palatable. They're easier to digest depending on the context. I know my New York Knicks won today. Shout out Cat, shout out Mr. Bodega, shout out to Mr. Jalen Brunson, our MVP, for killing it. Now the boys have a chance to win it there. And what is it going to be? 5 games, I believe, if they win on Tuesday at the Garden. Shout out to my Knicks. If only the other team in orange and blue that was playing today could step up the way that they did. Frank Sessa with a $2 holla, great member. Thank you so much for that, as always, Frank. But the Mets are up 4-0. Then Luis Acuna, who gets the start today at second base. Jeff McNeil's coming off the bench, mind you. This is a day removed from McNeil starting center field for the Mets, and 2 days removed from McNeil getting a start at second base and having a very unfortunate final play where the ball gets past him, and that leads to the initial walk-off victory where C.J. Abrams somehow, some way goes first to home. And of course, C.J. Abrams was right in the thick of the walk-off again today, because why wouldn't he be? But as we continue on, everybody, Luis Acuna pokes one opposite field. A beautiful contact by Acuna to hit him where they ain't. That increases the Mets' lead 5-0. 2 out runners in scoring position hitting for Mr. Acuna, not a problem. This is exactly why I told you guys every show we do, Luis Acuna needs to be in the lineup. He needs to be playing. He makes a difference pretty much every single game out here, and today was no different. After we become a 5-0 lead for the Mets, Taylor gets on with a walk, and then Lindor pops out to end it. So Parker throws over 40 pitches on first. He's batting practice, and the Mets put up a 5-piece there that we see, a 5-piece chicken nugget in the top of the first. In the bottom of the first, we would see C.J. Abrams strike out on 3 straight fastballs. Bang, bang, boom. Tyler Megill is feeling the high heat early in this one, and after that would be a quick strikeout there that we would see on Abrams. Would be a ground out on James Wood and a fly out on Luis Garcia, and that does it for the first. And the second, everybody, we would see Juan Soto rip a 113-mile-per-hour double, or at least he legged a single into a double. They gave him the double. Okay, his 6th double of the season for Juan Soto. Soto, who we know has been underwhelming this season in various facets, whether it's been his lack of consistency on the offensive end, costing the Mets on the defensive end. Today, it wasn't an offensive issue, but it had everything to do with losing that ball in the sun later on this ball game. Kevin Kane, thank you so much for the $5 holla. Kevin states, silver lining, Soto looked Soto today. Stanek, Joey Butts out of the circle of trust now. I don't think you can completely take Stanek out of the circle of trust, but he's getting close to being booted out. I still like Stanek and like his upside, and unfortunately, the boys just didn't give him insurance today. I firmly believe if Ryan Stanek had a 2-run lead today, that this would not have happened, right? It's some bad luck. You're not going to be dominant every single time out there. I'm not going to give him a complete pass today, but I also know that Stanek has kind of had some bad luck on his side, too, with how this DC series has went, one way or another. But either way, folks, thank you so much for the donation, Kevin. As we go back to breaking this one down, Soto would rip that leadoff double, 113 miles per hour, scorching liner there into the center right gap to have him on second in scoring position. You can't expect the bullpen to be good every day. No, of course you can, and I appreciate the donation. Us Mets fans have just been spoiled there, President, the fact that we've had arguably the best bullpen all season long, right? Per Fangraphs WAR and wins above replacement, they've been top dog up until this point now. In ERA, they were top 3, but that changes today after Jose Budo got his absolute tit slit and Ryan Stanek didn't do us much of any favors. After that Alonso infield single, the Mets have themselves 2 on with no out for Mark Vientos, and Vientos would fly out, and this was after a collision, everybody. A great catch by Luis Garcia at second base, but he goes into shallow center right field, and he gets into a collision. So he was thankfully okay. They both stayed in the game. I forgot who he got in a collision with. Might have been Call or someone else, but either way, a great catch by him. He corrals it. He keeps that catch, and after that catch, we see Juan Soto be smart with a heads-up play and go from second to third, taking advantage of the little defensive blunder there by the Nationals. Soto would come in to score as Nimmo, we would see there, would line out, and that would end it from there. So I apologize, folks. Did Nimmo come in to score? Did Soto come in to score in that? Yes, he did, because Starling Marte, that's right. Starling Marte grounded into a force out, and that allowed Nimmo to score. When I say Nimmo, I meant Juan Soto. I'm getting a ton tied here. And then Brandon Nimmo, the final batter of the second inning, had a scorching line out. I mean, if this was anywhere close to being in the gap, it was completely out of the infield. Really bad luck from Nimmo here. I'm curious what the expected batting average was on this one, because he ripped the absolute hell out of this baseball. Let's actually see if I can get the miles per hour on it. Let's see if they're going to give it to me here on the site. They may not show me it right now. That's okay. But he absolutely destroyed that baseball. And as we then get to the third inning, everybody, before we got to the third, I should say, Nathaniel Lowe was called out on strikes there. Tyler Megill looking nasty as ever. Then a ground out to Josh Bell, and then Dylan Cruz rips his 4th home run of the year. Feels like his 4th against the Mets this series, just because of how much a pest Dylan Cruz has been all season long against this Mets team to kickstart this series. Dylan Cruz, a former 2nd overall pick from LSU, continues his dominance against this Mets team. D-Mac, thank you so much for the $5. I appreciate that. I'm actually going to address both of your guys' donations just in a couple minutes once I'm done breaking down a couple of these innings here, because I want to get in a little bit of flow with this one. So Ernesto and D-Mac, I will get to your donation shortly, guys. Thank you so much for them. And I know, Juan, I don't know who the hell said that. Just a troll in the chat, as per usual. That's absolutely insane. No less, Cruz makes it a 5-run ball game, which didn't feel like it was going to be an issue at the time, but 1 run would be the difference maker in the end for favoring the Nationals here, which is so frustrating to say. Tenna grounds out, and that does it there for the second, everybody. So we then get on to the third. We're in the third. We would see Luis Torrens ground out, Luis Angel Acuna ground out, and Tyrone Taylor flies out in the top of the third. In the bottom of the third, we would see Alex Call get on with a leadoff walk, but after a leadoff walk that Tyler Megill gives up, he gets in a groove, baby. He strikes out Riley Adams, he gets a big strikeout on CJ Abrams, and then he gets a ground out on James Wood there to finish things off unscathed in the third. In the fourth inning, we would see Juan Soto get on with a 1-out walk, and then Pete Alonso unfortunately grounded into a double play, which then leads us to the bottom of the fourth, where Tyler Megill has himself a nice 1-2-3, including a fantastic second-out catch by Tyrone Taylor, diving out gorgeously there in center field. Smooth play in center by Tyrone Taylor, TT as we love to call it, and Josh Bell there with a ground out ends it in the bottom of the fourth. As we get on to the fifth, everybody, this is where the Mets are trying to cook and get more going. Mark Vientos gets the party started with an opposite field single to lead off the inning. Then we would see Starling Marte there that we would see with a ground out into a force out. So Marte's on for Vientos basically. Then with 2 outs, Luis Torrens, guys, does the thing again. After a Nimmo flyout, which was frustrating to see, Torrens rips his 7th double of the season, and that drives in the Mets' 7th run of the ball game. Luis Torrens, what a game he had. We're going to talk about him more shortly in this one, everybody. But Torrens stepped up big time, gave the Mets that 7-1 lead. 1,200, thank you for the donation. I appreciate that too. I'm going to get to all your guys' donations once I'm done breaking down everything in this ball game here. Just give me a couple minutes, guys. Thank you so much again for your patience. Going to get to all the donations, and I'll get to plenty of your comments in the chat, and we'll go on from there. But Torrens makes a 7-1 Mets as we see Acuna ground out to end things on the top of the fifth. But the Mets are up by 6 here, and we're in the 5th inning. The fact that they lost this game, inexcusable. That is the perfect word to put it, because we would see Tyler Megill look disgustingly good in the bottom of the 5th. He strikes out 2 of the 3 batters that he sees. He strikes out Cruz, he strikes out Tenna, and then he gets a pop out on Alex Call easily for a nice 1-2-3 inning to work there in the 5th. And then the 6th, everybody, here comes Lucas Sims to replace Mitchell Parker, because Mitchell Parker was done for the Nationals today after giving up 7 runs and 6 earned, including 5 walks and 0 strikeouts, who now has a 2.65 ERA, because this same guy somehow, some way went 8 shutty against the Orioles in his previous start. I don't know how it happened, but it happened. Either way, folks, we would see Tyrone Taylor strike out against Sims. Then Lindor gets on with a hit by pitch. Soto then strikes out on, what was a fastball up and away, or it was a cutter up and away that really surprised him, and he actually slammed his bat a little bit in frustration after, understandably so. And then Alonso flies out to end it from there. In the bottom of the 6th, we would see Riley Adams called out on strikes. Then we see CJ Abrams would be striking out there on a foul tip. And then James Wood lines out there, everybody, for the final out. And after we saw the Riley Adams called strike 3 call, the umpire was getting an earful there from the assistant hitting coach of the Nationals, and he was promptly ejected from today's ballgame. The umpire screwed both the Mets and the Nationals on multiple occasions today. The Mets had some calls go in their favor, top of the zone, that was otherwise borderline strikes that maybe weren't going in their favor in previous days. And then they also had some calls not go in their favor, including Jose Butto getting absolutely worked. Dave, thank you so much for the donations to Pucky over Butto. The bar's low right now after Butto had himself a batting practice day against DC. Mark Vientos with a single that we saw to lead things off, everybody, in the top of the 7th. Sterling Marte then gets on with a hit by pitch. So there's 2 on, no out here, and here comes the southpaw and Colin Poche to face that being in Mr. Brandon Nimmo. And Brandon Nimmo, usually good against lefties, can't even get the job done here as he would ground into a double play. And that's assuming Colin, I think, was a lefty. Don't quote me on that, but I believe he was. Nimmo grounds into the double play, and then Torrens would be called out on strike 3 that he did not argue. In the bottom of the 7th, we would see Garcia rip his 4th double of the year, leading things off here against Tyler Megill. And the worst part of it all, everybody, is that this double only happened because Juan Soto couldn't see a ball in right field. It was a very playable ball that, unfortunately, and they showed the replay as Daniel Murphy was breaking down with Gary because they were the lone guys on the broadcast today. Very good job in the case of Murph and Gary. I think Murph is best in a 2-man group versus a 3-man group, just because I think it's easier to kind of understand him and to see what he has to articulate. There's less time for him to obviously speak and get his opinions out as a former Met and National too, when he has, say, Ron or Keith in the booth along with him. But him and Gary just themselves, I thought, was very good today. But regardless, everybody, as that is going on, we would see Juan Soto has the clear sun reflection hard on his glasses. But as Daniel points out in the broadcast, and this is a fair play, they always tell you, especially with the outfielders, is to always continue to deviate away, move your head out of where that initial beam is starting to shine in. Didn't happen there for Soto, and that was a difference maker, because not only did it screw Tyler Megill, but it honestly started the unravelment of this entire ball game. Between that and the Mets not heading with runners in scoring position previously when they had other opportunities to do so, it comes down to a degree in Juan Soto not handling that ball, and here's why. Tyler Megill had these runs charged on him, what should have been, in all honesty, an error on Juan Soto for missing a ball in the sun, because it's no one's fault other than himself. So I don't understand how that's called an actual double. Yet it is, because I understand this is how the game is. Then we would see Nathaniel Lowe strike out, and that would be huge. And then Josh Bell rips a single and make it 7-2 Nationals. So okay, here comes that run, and that's charged on Tyler Megill. And speaking of Tyler Megill, that's it for his day, everybody. He's pulled from this ballgame, Tyler Megill, that we would see for Jose Butto. And I don't love Jose Butto coming in a jam whatsoever. That has not been the recipe of success or in the early goings of the bullpen this season. And as Jose Butto comes in, he strikes out Dylan Cruz promptly there, swinging, but then he gives up a 2-out single to Jose Tena at the bottom of the lineup. And Alex Call there then rips a single himself to make it 7-3 the Nationals. And you're like, okay, can we please just get out of this damn inning? And we don't get out of this inning without Riley Adams, of course, hitting his first tank of the year there. Jose Butto serving up batting practice, and it's a 1-run ball game just like that. CJ Abrams thankfully pops out in foul territory, but not before. It's a 1-run ball game, and we all know how this ball game ends, obviously. So one thing that I want to highlight with each and every one of you right here, right now, before we break down the remainder of the ball game, is what we got from Tyler Megill. Ignore the graphic here of Kranick. This was from our previous video that we did that dropped in the AM yesterday, I want to say, because we didn't drop a video today. We will have a video that drops in the AM for each and every one of you for tomorrow, guys, so be on the lookout for that, because we have a lot of updates in Mets land to get into outside of today's game itself. But as we take a look at how Tyler Megill fared today, what an absolute shame that he had his final line charge away that he did. Megill should have escaped this game with a 1.17 ERA. Instead, he gets charged with 2 more earned runs than he otherwise should have been charged with, goes up to a season-high 105 pitches, goes almost 7 strong innings, 3 hits, 1 walk, 3 earned runs, 9 strikeouts, and a 1.74 ERA across 31 innings so far this season. Tyler Megill has been absolutely fantastic for this Mets team, and it pains me to no end when we see quality starts like this get absolutely thrown under the rug because the boys lose in a dramatic fashion when Megill himself had nothing to do with the actual issue here. And when we advance and break down Megill's arsenal today, he had so much working between the four-seam fastball to the slider, the sinker, and obviously the change that he utilized not as much as his previous start. Went a heavy four-seam today. You know, he went over 50% in his four-seam against the Phillies 5 days ago. Today, he went 41% with the four-seam. But when you're topping out 97.5 miles per hour and sitting 96, you have every right in the world to be pitching the way that Tyler Megill is. And we know that when it comes to Tyler Megill, that velocity is going to carry him with his success. It's playing up this year. It's looking fantastic. Look at how he approaches guys on the top of the zone too, the way that he is. And that helps set up, obviously, when he's going for his breaking ball, either down and in, down and away, gain them to bite, depending on the matchup. The slider, which was 25% of the arsenal for Tyler Megill today, topped out 86 and sat right around 85. The sinker at 17% of the arsenal, topped out 97, sat right around 95. The curveball at 10% of the arsenal, topped out 83 and sat right around 81. And the changeup at just 8% of the arsenal, topped out 90 and sat right around 89. Folks, I'm going to say something that I very, very rarely say when a starter doesn't even give me 7 innings and gives up 3 earned runs technically. Tyler Megill gets a strong 8 out of 10 from your guy Wardy today, because understanding the context, having watched every single inning this entire ball game, Megill was in an absolute groove. He does not deserve this final line whatsoever, and it pisses me off that I have to tell you guys that 3 earned runs were charged on him when that should have never been the case. Tyler Megill gets a rock solid 8 out of 10. And Jack, don't worry, baby. I don't believe I missed your donation. I just didn't get to them yet because I'm still breaking down the ball game. All donations I'll be getting to shortly, everybody. Once I'm done breaking down Megill, I'll answer them briefly. Then we'll get into wrapping up and breaking down the remainder of the ball game. Again, and get on to other key player performances. But guys, I would love to hear from you guys in the chat, in the comments down below, to the hundreds of you guys watching and the thousands of you guys on replay too. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you grade Tyler Megill's final line today? Because understanding the context of this start, knowing that this was not something that was in his control in the case of Jose Butto missing, not Jose Butto, I apologize, but also in the case of Juan Soto missing a routine play there and right, getting lost in the sun. He deserves a rightful grade. I'm giving Tyler Megill a strong 8 out of 10. You'll never see me give an 8 out of 10 for a guy that gave up 3 and even go 7, but he's the exception today, given the context I just relayed to each and every one of you. Feel free to spam in the chat and the comments down below, everybody. PB9, D. Wilson, D-Mac, great memories. Happy to have you guys in here as always. But guys, let me answer some of your donations quick, and then we'll continue breaking down the final innings of this ball game, what led to the greater frustration here, and ultimately what's next for the boys. D-Mac with a $5 haul stated the following earlier: this long-running experiment with Butto and inherited runners needs to end. Gonna use him, start him with a clean inning. I 1,000% agree. Unfortunately, the Mets didn't make that decision today, and that's where we're at. Let's see. And also, Jaden in the chat earlier just saying some ridiculous stuff. Probably hasn't watched the channel before and doesn't understand that I'm a very fast-paced talker. I'm speed running, especially after a frustrating loss like this. Ernesto, thank you so much for the $5 haul. Ernesto says, should we be worried about Marte or Nimmo? They feel like a black hole in the middle of the lineup. Overly worried, I shouldn't say that, but I think there's rightful cause for concern with Nimmo, especially right now, because this is a continuation that hasn't really gotten all that better. We've seen the little sample sizes of Nimmo looking like he's starting to get in a groove and get out of his rut, but he still is struggling mightily there to have balls drop by going for opposite field. So many flyouts, so many groundouts, and the flyouts are fine when we're getting sack flies like he did today, but we also need to see him produce because he is in so many prime positions to drive in runs, and we've seen that throughout the course of the season. Thank you guys for the donation. 1,200. Why is Butto even allowed in the uniform? DFA dat pum. Thank you so much for the donation. Listen, Butto isn't the worst thing, obviously, but Butto has not helped the Mets too much this season either. Now we've reached the conversation, which is what should happen next with Jose Butto. And I think we can all agree that he should be more so on the outside looking in with not only high leverage, but also potentially his future in this bullpen. The Mets have enough arms to consider right now in Syracuse should they want to make a change in the immediate future or in the eventual future in the case of Jose Butto. So we'll talk more about that in tomorrow's content, so be on the lookout for it. But in simple terms, yes, I won't be overly shocked if Jose Butto is not in this bullpen all season long. Very real reality where he's not at some point. Let's see. I meant to say Seek James. That's where you got bothered by the thumbnail. It was a typo on my end. It was supposed to say Seek, and it got blown up in my face because the Mets didn't even win in the end. But that was Just an honest accident, nothing more, nothing less. Jack with a $2 hollow, thank you so much. Jack says, I hate that we lost, but we still have the best record. We do still have the best record. And even though I don't really care too much about having the best record at this point in the season, it still is important context, because the same way the Mets are losing games dramatically is the same way that the Mets are winning games dramatically. And this statistic cannot be swept under the rug either, everybody. Before we break down the remainder of this ball game, let me talk about this briefly. The Mets have the best record in the month of April that they've ever had in team history. The Mets have never won 19 games in the month of April in their many years of existence. So let that marinate and sit for a second before you think that you get to the point of the sky actually falling after a game like this. Is it frustrating as all hell? Yes. Did it piss me off? Absolutely. Am I worried about the immediate future of this team? No, I'm not, because I know that they were 19-9 when they haven't even played close to their best baseball this year. And if you've watched every game and understand the context of what we just broke down, then you know for certain that that is the case, the reality that we find ourselves in right now. But getting back in this one and breaking down the remainder of this ball game, everybody, let's go ahead and do exactly that, because as we would see, it's now a one-run ball game as we head to the 8th inning, where we would see Luis Angel Acuna strike out swinging, Tyrone Taylor pops out, and Lindor grounds out. We get to the bottom of the 8th, where Huascar Brosban comes in, and Brazo continues to work some Houdini magic. He gives up a leadoff walk to James Wood. James Wood has the same amount of doubles as Juan Soto this year, with 6 apiece. For context, James Wood and C.J. Abrams and Mackenzie Gore were the three-headed monster of a trade between Juan Soto going to Padres and the Nationals getting back a big haul all those years ago. Garcia grounds out softly. Nathaniel Lowe then that we saw with a one-out walk. And then after a mound visit, we saw a big strikeout there on Josh Bell, which was huge. And then we drilled Dylan Cruz, because of course we do. Honest accident by Brosban, but it was frustrating. And then a massive line out right away from Jose Tena to Mark Vientos. Escapes the bases juice jam unscathed here for Mr. Huascar Brosban. It wasn't easy, it wasn't sexy, but it got the job done. And I want to shout out Brazo greatly for doing exactly that. GSU, they're allowed to have both. And you know that if you'd understand the fact that I started the show by being as amped and frustrated as I've been. Well, you can balance both. Know that it's a very important month for the Mets. They've been playing great baseball, and also be very pissed off by today's outing. Both those things can be true. Sometimes we have fans that follow one category more than the other, where they feel that they have to be this internal optimist throughout everything no matter what, or they have to be this pessimist no matter what, when you're allowed to have a happy medium. You're allowed to have your emotions be erratic the way that baseball season can be erratic, where you're on a roller coaster pace of a 162. These things are going to happen. But as we see, everybody, in the top of the 9th, Juan Soto ripped his second base hit of the day. This is a single that was just out of the reach there that we saw of Luis Garcia that deflected off of his glove. Then Alonso gets on with a hit by pitch. Was an initial pain, but he's okay, thankfully. A wild pitch would then put runners at second and third with no out, everybody. The Mets have runners at second and third with no out. And this was the biggest demise, you could argue, than anything else. They don't even get a run in. All the Mets needed was a run in to just add a sliver of insurance, and they couldn't even do that. Mark Vientos grounds out. Starling Marte grounds out softly. And then we see Brandon Nimmo ground out. None of the balls were able to get out of the infield. When that final ground out was thanks to Jorge Lopez coming in to face Brandon Nimmo. And then in the bottom of the 9th, Ryan Stanek gives up a leadoff double to Alex Call. Alex Call continues to kill the Mets today. After the Alex Call double, Keeper Ruiz grounds out to move into third base. Abrams ties the game right away with a single. James Wood then gets on with a walk, and color me shocked, C.J. Abrams, for the second time in 3 nights, is the game-winning run for the Nationals, as Luis Garcia would reach there on a throwing error, and that would cause everything to go awry, and the Mets lose this one by a final score of 8-7. So not only did the Mets have numerous opportunities to score with runners in scoring position with less than 2 outs after they had a 6-run lead, but between that, Juan Soto missing a clear routine ball in right field, and everything else in between was the ultimate demise of this ball club. The Mets, guys, just for context, they were 3 for 12 with runners in scoring position. So again, did Soto screw us terribly defensively? Absolutely. But did the Mets shoot themselves in the foot even greater by not hitting with runners in scoring position? Absolutely. All these things are true at the same time, everybody. You left 8 on base and you went 3 for 12 with runners in scoring position. It's not going to get the job done. And let's talk more about the positives, everybody, because there were positives from this ball game. Disregard Francisco Alvarez here, because what a stud he was, helping the Mets lead to that 2-0 win yesterday with his opposite field home run. We're going to go from talking about Mr. Francisco Alvarez to talking about his his man there, his buddy at catcher, and Louis Torrens, because Louis Torrens gets a start at catcher today, everybody, and he takes full advantage of it. Let's talk a minute or two about what Torrens has been able to still do so well for this Mets team, even after a deflating walk-off loss like this. It needs to be discussed because Torrens continues to look fantastic. A 2-for-4 game, including vital hits with 2 outs, mind you, leading to those 2 RBIs, a 258 average, and a 711 OPS. You know, we had a lot of fans heading into Alvarez's return saying, oh no, you can't have Alvarez getting playing time with how well Torrens is playing. You had other fans saying, well, that's it for Torrens, no more playing time for him. He's going to now cool off big time and not be that guy for this team. What about a happy medium? What about a healthy balance? The way that us fans should have a healthy balance of our emotions, yet we still choose not to do so, right? Having Torrens getting today's start was expected after the Mets went from Alvy starting the first 2 games of the series. Now we'll see if Torrens gets to start tomorrow. I'd imagine that he might, just because you want to reward a game like this. Even after Alvy hit his home run, you want a balance of things. And to have a catching tandem as good as any, the way the Mets currently have in Major League Baseball right now, is really, really impressive. Like, there are so many positive takeaways to have here from this Mets catching tandem so far this year between Alvarez and Torrens. And the best part of it all is that you can have Alvarez as a lethal option to come off the bench later in the ball game and then be your catcher going forward if, say, Torrens was done, or vice versa, right? In the case of Torrens as well, he stepped up for the Mets when asked upon, when called upon there, and when we have needed him there in pinch hitting situations. So I want to give a massive shout out to Luis Torrens. He is one of a couple offensive standouts I want to highlight in particular out of today's game. I was really impressed with what we got from him offensively, and it's a damn shame that, again, a game like this, the Mets lose in a dramatic walk-off fashion, and we can't even talk about the fact of what works so well for them and guys like Luis Torrens. You know, it sucks because I love to see guys like him continue to produce the way that he has. But when you have a bullpen where Jose Budo and Ryan Stank just don't get the job done, Huascar Brosband was a snap of a finger from not getting the job done in his case either. Thankfully, he did. Between the runners of scoring position woes and Juan Soto, that is what led to their demise, everybody. But let's go now from talking about Luis Torrens to talking about one other player that I want to highlight for a second. Spoken like my holy cane. There you go, Dominic. Happy to have you in here as always, brother. And guys, let me know, how are you feeling about Luis Torrens and Francisco Alvarez to begin the season? Do you guys like the tandem that the Mets are going to have for the foreseeable future? Do you dislike? Would you prefer one having a lot more playing time than the other, or do you like the balance that they expect to do based on an every game basis, which I think is best for the both of them and their continued development, more so on Alvarez than the case in Torrens, because we know with Torrens, even though he has been developing as a veteran minor leaguer turned now major leaguer the past year plus, Alvarez has tremendous upside, and we all know that too. But let's now talk about a guy that obviously was controversial today, but he was controversial for the wrong reasons, right? He was controversial not for the bat, which has been something that a lot of fans have given him flack for this year. No, Juan Soto was controversial today because, like I said, he couldn't handle routine play in the outfield with the sun getting in his way. And to see that drop the way that I did, what bothered me most truly in that moment was that, one, it's screw Tyler Megill. I felt worse for him more than anyone or anything else. I was like, of course, Tyler Megill just cannot catch a break. Every single start, Tyler Megill gets absolutely screwed one way or the other by bad defense by this Mets team. It's either bad defense in the outfield or bad defense in the infield. It's always one thing or another that helps to unravel him when he's been pitching otherwise sharp. And I can understand some of the counters from fans saying, well, Wardy, if I'm being honest with you, I really wish that Mendoza didn't bring in Megill to pitch the 7th inning. And while I can understand that argument to a degree, let's also be honest and say to ourselves, would Tyler Megill have gone out of that jam? Would Tyler Megill have given up a single run in that inning if Juan Soto was able to handle that ball? And I think the answer to that is he probably would have gone out of it, right? And the fact that he didn't stings mostly out of this than anything else. And that's why when I evaluate Juan Soto today, I'm torn, because there were positives offensively. He got on base 4 times today, 2 walks, 2 hits, including a double scorch at 113 miles per hour. So it wasn't like he was this huge liability offensively, but I see the counter. Vientos has been a bit a disappointment. I actually disagree, GSU. Vientos has been quietly heating up plenty with the bat over his past week and a half of games. And if you've been watching every game, you know that. Mark had another 2-hit game today and an RBI. He's now past the Mendoza line finally at 207 with 630. So Vientos is finding his stride. He's actually one of my least concerns at the moment, because we're seeing positive production out of him continuously over the past week and a half to 2 weeks. Soto has fluctuated in the continuation on the offense as to if it's positive or negative. And defensively, well, we know sometimes he's looked great, especially with the cannon. He's throwing out runners the way he did against the Phillies there, because Nick Castellanos cannot round third and try to dive home to save his life, but a great cannon by Soto nonetheless. And then you add in the fact that Juan Soto's paid $765 million, and so far this season, throughout the first month or so, he just has not been the guy. He has not been it. We can make all the excuses that we want, and I already get flack all the time on social media, among other things, because I support Juan Soto and want him to succeed as our potential generational talent for years to come. I'm so sorry, guys. I support Juan Soto and want him to do well. I'm such an asshole for that. But, if you talk to, Mets headline or some others on X, they're going to be pessimists and continue to say what they're going to say. I just find that hilarious, because the same way that I uplift players is the same way that I will always be blunt and talk not purposely down, but it's going to happen one way or the other. I'm going to talk shit on you. If you don't play well and you get paid the big bucks and you're supposed to be handling high leverage situations, if you're supposed to get key outs for this team and you don't provide those exact things, I'm going to give you flack for it. Same way how 48 hours ago, some people were saying how, oh, I want Megill off the roster outside of because of the fact that he had one bad play there against the Nationals 48 hours ago that led to them being walked off. No. And if you understood the context, I said in my Big Mets Updates video, the full context of, no, I don't just want Megill to be thrown out of here, and I want him to succeed if he's playing. That's all I care about. If you're on the Mets roster, if you're playing, I want you to succeed. That's the most important thing. But when you have guys that could shorten your leash as to playing second base, then you need to make sure that you perform well. That's a very important thing. And Megill defensively was a factor into the Mets losing game one of this series. Juan Soto, there is no immediate replacement for him or anything like that, obviously. We're not going to do that. And the problem is that we want him and need him to be a guy that is helping carry this team. And a month into the season, officially now a month into the year, we can all comfortably say that outside of what was it, like say 2 games, Juan Soto has not at all been anything more than just another guy in the lineup. Another guy that doesn't play great defense, but can continue to kind of move the needle to the next batter, that being the case in Pete Alonso, in which Alonso has been fantastic this year, so he's far from a concern. So I understand all the pros and the cons to Juan Soto early. I understand the criticism that he's going to continue to get, and I too will find himself being a critic at times when he's not performing the way that he should be. But today, I don't think there's any valid criticisms get on him with the offense for the most part, outside of that one strikeout up high and away that he should have had, but he knew it too, and I actually enjoyed the fact that he was as frustrated as he was after the strikeout, because it shows that he cares. That's the most important thing too, right? So Soto offensively wasn't the issue today. Defensively started the unravelment of the Mets trying to win this ball game to begin with. But now we have one final game left in DC. Can Juan Soto provide more offense than he has ever before for the Mets in a game there for that 4 o'clock game or so tomorrow? We'll be on the lookout for it. But I want to know your thoughts on what's going on with Juan Soto so far this year and what's going on with this entire team as a whole. I would love to hear from each and every one of you. Dylan with the $5 haul. Thank you so much for that, Dylan. Dylan says, this is a bad loss, but the Dodgers almost got swept by the same Nats team. That is true. That is true. And while that is a fun little wrench to throw in this to kind of validate, to be like the Nats are a good team, because they are, nothing validates losing a game when you had 6 runs. I don't give a shit if the Nationals got... You want to know why I don't care about the Dodgers getting swept? Because the Dodgers got swept by the Pirates last season, the first half of the year too, if I'm not mistaken. And look at what the Dodgers did last year. You know what I mean? So one way or the other, I really don't care about what happens with other teams other than rivals immediately that impact standings out of the NL East, because that's the only kind of early thing that some fans will still focus on. Outside of, though, the only thing I care about is the Mets winning baseball games as much as they can. 10 games above 500 is awesome, and we have no right to overly complain about. But we have all the right to be a critic, all the right to be frustrated, and all the right to have a say as a fan after the boys drop a 6-run lead the way that they did today. So, Dominic, thank you so much for the kind words. I appreciate that too. Everybody in the chat, thank you guys kindly for all the kind words in this one. Live on a replay, you guys are absolutely fantastic. I'm going to get out of here in just a minute or two, but before I do, folks, if you have any final questions, comments, or concerns for me, feel free to relay them in the chat right now. That is I'll be more than happy to answer as many as I can for you guys over the next 10 minutes or so. For my replay viewers, I'm actually going to cut things off now. So everyone watching on replay, be on the lookout, as we're going to be live again tomorrow for at minimum post-game content. Probably won't be pre-game because how early the game is tomorrow. We usually only do pre-games for night games, like 6:45 to 7+ p.m. starts. Beyond that, usually pre-game is not going to happen too much. But be on the lookout what post-game tomorrow. We will have a video dropping in the AM because there's a lot that's happened in the Mets minor leagues the past 24 hours. There's a lot of awesome prospect updates to get into, and there's a lot of things I want to talk about on the pitching end as the Mets are debating now as to who's going to be their starter for Wednesday, because they'd rather go with a 6-man versus to continue the rotation that they're doing. They'd rather give the guys 1 day off on rest. So for everybody in the chat, let me answer whatever comments, questions you guys got for me, and then we'll go on from there. And I'm talking about Alonso's throw to first. Yes, and I talked about that earlier briefly. That was not ideal. It was Alonso not being able to make that play at first was the perfect cherry on top to what ultimately was a shit show game for this Mets team. It is what it is, folks. So everybody live, let's continue. Replay viewers, this is where we're cutting things off. Let's go Mets, baby. Hit that like and subscribe button on your way out.